All right, here we go. Another explainer. This time, not going to be explaining how to build a sign. Not doing a macro explainer. I'm just going to talk about symbols and just how Corel uses them. This is mostly just for all the homies and homettes at work, and explaining what I found out about them and what I think could really help. I started messing with symbols when I started messing with macros, but even then I kind of didn't understand the strong magic that was there. And I've just sort of learned to use them as just a way to drag and drop things that I need all the time. And that's the basic understanding I had of them all the way up until basically this weekend, when I kind of started to use them a little bit more, but I still didn't understand fully how they worked. And it wasn't until this weekend I kind of did some crash course digging around, and that was like, oh boy, wow, these can be super powerful actually. And what's funny is after learning about them, it's more like, welcome to what the rest of the industry calls assets. Things, production houses, advertising, things like that. When you're using a brand or a logo or anything like that, I think that's what kind of put me in sort of a linear way of thinking, is that, Corel calls them symbols. So I'm thinking, arrows and, you are here, things like that. But it's brand names, it's logos. It can be anything as an asset. The difference is that asset, which again, using symbols, I never understood how when it says something is, here's the Docker, but when it says linked, I never could understand like, well, what's linked? What is that? And every time you see these symbols, they have like a little, you see right there, it's got a little lock symbol. And I'm like, well, what is that? So the explainer part was just, how do we drag and drop? How do I save them? Fine. But I was like, I didn't know the rest of it. Well, what are these? What are symbols? There's just a way to drag and drop. Doesn't, whatever. So I'm going to explain how to save them and how to get them back and all that. And that's actually very tricky. It's not easy. It helps to have a little explainer like this. But the second is I'll go over how I think they could really fit into our workflow. And they're pretty powerful as far as, and I'm not saying we have to do it this way, but if you understand their potential, then case by case, you might find a use like, whoa, that could really help out. So anyway, so let's get to it. I'm just going to show you basically how to create one. And, we all basically know how to create one, but we're wondering like where to save them and how to get them back, because they seem to just disappear. And then it's like, where'd they go? So anyway, I don't need my rectangular for this one. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to get rid of my corner kick for this so we have the full thing. So I created this. For me, visualization helps. And what you're going to do is you're going to go up here and open the Docker's, the Docker's, the symbols Docker. I like to keep it, I don't normally show my other screen here, but I like to keep it right here. You don't need to keep the Docker like right here all the time. Some people like to do the minimization, the minimal or minimize and open it up. That's fine if you want to keep it there. But it does help to stretch it out a little bit, because as you'll see, once you start dealing with a lot of symbols, then, you'll have a lot of them here. And this is where you access them. Similar to your objects Docker, if you use that shows like everything that's on a page. It's kind of like that. It becomes very handy. So you kind of want to keep it to where you can see, a list, especially if we start to see how handy it is. We start keeping maybe long lists of things. So anyway, I'm going to keep the Docker here though, just as we're working. So the Docker itself, the symbols Docker, has two parts to it. It has this pane here that shows your network and your local stuff, where all the little containers that contain your symbols are. And it also shows at the very top, it shows the document you're on. So it has the document. The linked symbols are I think it's more for like if you're using the cloud, if you're using, the cloud, you got stuff linked up there. This usually doesn't turn on, fine. And then, so you've got local symbols that'll show you your network stuff or your local symbols. And then this shows you stuff that's on your server somewhere. So I'll show you, that's what I'm going to get into right now. So this visualization, I hope helps, because this is what helps me see what's up. Otherwise it is kind of confusing. So let's say this is the current document right here. You got page 1 and you got page 2, just like we're here now. This is symbol explainer. We're on this document. Now on this document, you create some symbols, right? You save them as whatever. Now, in order to keep these symbols now live on this document, and that's it. But the idea behind a symbol, and that's not, it doesn't help anybody if you just have a symbol here and that's it. The idea is now you want to save these out and put them in a place that somebody can use them. So these Dockers, or these symbols, are going to show up in this Docker here, and because these are on the page, and they're going to show up here, and like this guy here is going to show up there. Okay, so now you want to save these symbols out, and then also these also will show up like here. These are all the ones that are on the page. Okay, so these will show up here because these are on the symbol. So now you want to export these. So I went ahead and created some over here so I don't have to type or anything. So the idea behind saving symbols is that these symbols are going to get put into what's called a .csl file. So the symbols themselves cannot exist outside of the document, period. This green symbol here only can live in the document. Otherwise, the symbols Docker here, represented by red, that's this symbols Docker, has to put it into a container and put it away. So I liken these .csl files. These are a symbol library. CSL stands for Corel Symbol Library. I look at it as a little box of toys. So you have to create a box, and you're going to export. You have to export these out in order to save them. So let's say you want to save these 4 symbols as sort of a group of symbols. So you name each one separately. Okay, symbol, symbol, symbol. Now you're going to take those 4 in the symbols Docker here, and I'm going to show you an example, but I'm just trying to give you the visualization. You're going to name this thing all the circles dot whatever, and now the Docker here is going to put it into a little box. Now that CSL can now live. It can live in Windows. So all these .csls in my documents, Corel has created these. Inside each of these CSLs is all of the symbols. You will never see the symbols themselves unless this Docker here pops them open, and then you can get to them. So that's how the Docker works. And that's why it's a little bit confusing in a way. So you have all these symbols on your page and you're like, well, I just want to save them. Well, you got to export them and you got to name a container for them. And then you put those symbols onto the hard drives. Now, if you're going to export a box of toys, a CSL, you have 2 choices on this Docker here. You have local and network. Local, by default, is your username, documents, Corel content, symbols. You will find it. You can go find it. That's where the default is. So you go up here and you hit export. See, it says import, but right here it says export. So you would take these 4 symbols, hit export. It's going to say name it. I'm going to call it all the circles. And now you will save it here. So that's how these 4 symbols are living on your user C drive there. And so now let's say, what are these other pre-cooked ones? So I only want 2 of the circles. So I will select these 2, let's say, what did I do here? These 2. So I would select these 2. I'd hit export. And then it would ask me to name this new library, and I'm just going to name it 2 circles, and then it's going to pop it out, and it's going to put it on my C drive. So that's how I don't see the symbols. I have to kind of know. So in your little box of toys here, name it so it's descriptive of what's inside, because you can't technically see what's in there. So let's say this one here, I made this one this funky. So let's say these 2 symbols, I want to save this out as symbols, but see they're turned and they're kind of weird. So I'm going to put these 2 in their own little box. I'm going to hit export and I'm going to name it funky. And now this also lives here. So let's say we shut down Corel and I'm going to work with a new document and I want to now pull these out. Well, now that you see, Corel is automatically tied to this folder. So here's all of my CSL boxes in real life right here. And that matches all of the CSLs here. So when you open your Corel, your Docker is going to be filled now already with this. So you're going to see these. And now Corel symbol Docker pops the lid off this .csl box. And now you have access to all your toys. And you can just drag them in and there they are. Now, So again, that's all you're doing is you're just basically creating a container for your symbols. Your symbols cannot live outside the document. And then where you save it, you export and you import. You don't save, you export and you import. So, but that's technically saving your symbols. Let's say you want to do one lonely little symbol here. Even if you're just doing one symbol, it has to go in a box. Not very, Marie Kondo would not be very happy about that. Not very efficient. But let's say you just want to save this one symbol. Well, you have to hit export. It's going to ask you to name the little box you want to put it in. I'll just call it the lonely circle. And then it's going to put it in documents. But it will also show up in the Docker from that point out because I exported it. And now the Docker is speaking to this folder and it's unpacking all this for me. So when I want my own lonely little circle, it's going to be in there. And then I open it and I drag it in. So as you can see, I have the AJ hat right here. I've got all these here. I've got my Keystone power supply. I have a lift point. So what it's doing here is it's opening these for me and letting me see what I have in there right away. So that's what the symbol Docker does, is you need to export your symbols, but you're putting them in what I call a little toy box, and then that is packing it away onto your C drive. Or, so you see here, network, this is what would be handy for us. Network doesn't have anything in it. So in order to duplicate networked, I went ahead and I have another drive inside my computer here. So I went ahead and I'm going to use that to kind of mimic best shared. But the idea would be that, let's say you want to export a different flavor here, just 2 squares, okay? But you want to be nice and you want to share it with everybody. So you're going to grab these 2 right here, and you're going to hit export library. It's going to ask you, what do you want to call your little box here? And I'm going to call it 2 squares. I'm going to export it, but I'm going to export it to this, so which would be the best shared in-house. So think of it like fonts, right? We have our fonts. It's always fun for fonts for us because, somebody has their font on their C drive and then nobody can get to it, hopefully, unless they hacked you. And then you're like, well, I don't have it, So the idea is to always maintain all of our stuff in the best shared in-house. So I'm proposing that what if we set up a symbols and assets? And so you export these 2 and you create this 2 squares, but you put it into networked, but now it shows up just like everything else here, but everyone else will have access to that. So let's say somebody else has their Docker open, right? And now they can export and import whatever. And now they won't have access to your stuff here, but they will have access to this. And then they can import it. And now they can drag and drop these onto their document. So that's the power of it, of the shareability. So that would be awesome. So to demonstrate that, let me just use a basic kind of use case that we would use. This is kind of what I've already started to do with my stuff. And this is what JR was kind of wondering because he could see the potential. And I think everyone could be using this. But then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit to it at the end to show even more powerful possible use cases. So anyway, so now this is example. So that's the idea. You create your symbol on your document, but now it's just sitting there. Help me, what do I do? And then you go ahead and export it out of your document, but it has to go into a little box that you also have to name. So don't get confused about naming the symbol and then also having to name the container that you then export it. So it's like a 2-step process. So as an example, I already have some silhouettes. So this is where this type of thing is where it would really help out graphics. So you could recognize where, these would be our symbols of people that we use. So I have stand-ins of the people we use. These aren't anyone we actually use. I think this is like a grunge band or something. I don't know what's up. Grabbed them off the internet. So let's just say and this is at whole size. So just work 1-to-1. The thing is that all of these will scale. They're just like working. So I would save them as full size, 1-to-1. And then you could do your, any document you're doing, you can do 1.5 equals a foot and stuff. That way it's real. So what you do is, I have this saved as a CDR. I'm going to go ahead and copy these, right? And I'm going to copy these and I'm going to do a disposable document. Okay. And I'm going to paste them there. And you don't need to save this or anything because we're going to create symbols, export them, and then they're going to live in Windows over there in a box, in a CSL. Then we can get rid of this document. We don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to do each one. Now you could do this as one symbol, but you'll have to import all 5 every time. So it might be worth it to do one at a time and then put all 5 in a little box, and then you could work with them individually. Otherwise, you have to drag and drop all 5 and delete every time. So this is where you create a symbol. So you notice that the bounding box is black. What we do is select. Now you could either do right click and go down to symbol and create new symbol, or select, hit the plus sign on the Docker. You can work on the Docker. So hit plus, and it's going to ask you to name this symbol. What you're doing is you're naming this individual toy. Be descriptive, but I'm just going to do, homie one, and that's it. Now you see it turn blue, and up here it says revert object. See up in the top left, you got edit master revert. We'll talk about that. But now you have a symbol. And if you look at the top here, remember you have network, local, and there it is. So now this is confirming you have one instance of homie one, and it is on the page. So now I'm going to select this one. I'm going to hit the plus sign. It's quicker. Okay, so now I have 5 symbols. Oops. Now I have 5 individual symbols, and they're all named. And you can see now in the Docker over here on this little browser, you can see all of them, and they have a little description and stuff. And then I'm going to explain. As I said, I didn't understand what this lock meant. I'll explain that. I know there's people screaming at their monitors going, I don't know what it's for. Okay, so now if you shut this, you have symbols, but now they're going to go away. So the whole idea, that's what JR is like, well, how do I save them? Okay, so if you select, this is where it gets confusing. If you select all 5, your object browser shows, yeah, I've selected all 5. The symbols Docker only has homie one selected because it doesn't care what you do in the document. Now you're working inside this thing. That's why I'm saying is, it's helpful to be able to kind of open this up a little bit and work in here. In order to export all of these, you're not exporting from the document. Now that they're in this browser or this Docker, you have to work in here. So now you have to select all of them. Okay. Now we go up here to the gear, right? Up the top right. Hit export library. This is essentially saving symbols. This is how you save. Export library should say create toy box. Hit that. Now you can see it defaulted to documents, Corel search symbols, like in the document there. Here's all my CSLs. And I'm going to go ahead and make a nice descriptive. Let's say, just say all, the homies 2. Because I already, let's see, all the peeps. I'm going to call it all the peeps because I already have all the homies. I was already practicing this. Anyway, so I'm going to save it all the peeps. So I'm going to save, right? And then now if I go to local symbols and I scroll down, see all the peeps? There they are. And they have these locked symbols. That means they are, there's copies. This is now in a box. You don't need this document. You can close it, save changes, no. And I have a CDR where they were actually still vector drawings. We'll just leave that. I can close that. Now, these symbols, and this is just the explainer. We can kind of minimize that. Now this is how you use this. So now what you're going to do is, let's say you're making a permit drawing or whatever. So up here you have untitled 1, and let's say this is we'll just save it as a permit drawing. Okay. Now you go to local symbols. So you have your document right here. It's highlighted. There's no symbols. Makes sense. You go to local symbols, which is where we saved it. And you're going to go find the box that has all the peeps in it. You select it. Look at there. Now you just drag them. Just that simple. Boom, boom. Anyone you want. And you can see where, it's blue, whatever. That's the power of the symbol thing. Imagine all of our bushes. You can even do, again, it doesn't have to be a single thing. You can turn, let's say our block wall details that have all this stuff. You could turn that whole thing into just one symbol. So you could have right here, instead of H4, this could be block wall detail that you just drag and plot, just like that. No more having to go, When was the last time I used it? What was the most recent? Let me go open that, copy it, paste it, shut the other document, search around, and next thing you know, it's lunchtime. Imagine the power of kind of, as you go, slowly sort of turning everything you do into symbols. And eventually everything will be simple. But anyway, so what triggered this was JR developed this really cool logo for me. And that's the whole idea. You don't need to copy paste it from the last time you used it. You just drag and drop it just like that. Like for me, I started to really use it. I'm starting to use it for power supply stuff. Like these are layouts for these little keystone power supplies we use. Like for lift point, like in my documents, I'll say this is a lift point. So I went ahead and vectorized like a little hook. So now I just drag and drop it. You guys all know my eyes, my famous, patent pending eyes, trademark right here. So anytime I need those now, I can just look at it like that. And of course you can just work with them any way you want. You can flip them around. They act just like normal things, just because they're symbols. Okay. I think you get the idea of how powerful this is. Now let's talk about network just real quick as an example. So what you would do is do the same thing. You would export this box, but instead put it into the network drive, and then it would show up here. This is where we would put all of our silhouette people, I think, is just drop them into the network symbols. So let's say, let's get rid of this. And let's open Peeps again. Again, that's why it's good to keep the original CDR of like Peeps, because once you change all these to symbols, there's they're all linked or whatever you want to call it. But just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and just do the whole thing at once, just so it's faster. So I'm going to go ahead and copy, and then I'm going to paste this onto a disposable document. That way it keeps Peeps CDR just as a CDR. And then I'm just going to go ahead and create this whole thing as a symbol. So I'm just going to do homies. Okay. And then it's blue. See there? It says revert to objects. So we are symbol. And I'm going to go up here. Again, now just selecting this doesn't do anything with the Docker. You have to go to the Docker right here. Select the document. There they are. There's it. And it's got the little unlock. Now I'm going to export this. Export library. This time though, I'm going to go to best shared. Now for me, I'm using this symbols. This is on a separate hard drive, but we would go to best shared in-house, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to call this Peeps all. Okay. And then I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to import library because network symbols doesn't see it yet. And I think if I remember correctly, this is what you do. It's a little drawn out, but you go to where it is, which is on Veronica. If you've ever watched Marvel movies, you know who Veronica is. And you're going to go to symbols and Peeps all. And now you need to uncheck this. Copy libraries locally. You uncheck that because otherwise all it does is kick it into your local symbols up here. So in order to keep this mapped to network, do not, unhook that and then hit OK. Now look, I got an arrow. So now I'm working with this homies from this other drive. So I'm seeing that network symbols would be on the best shared in-house symbols and assets. And here's all of your silhouettes, like I said, even permit drawings, cutaways, things that you could just drag and drop, just plunk, instant permit drawing rather than, and I understand we have templates and stuff too. So, there's different ways to do it, but imagine some of that stuff you could just drag in, plunk, done. So, and so now if I just create a new document and I want to work with these homies, but see that, like I said, I'm dragging in all of them at once, but then what you can do is just revert objects and it goes back to vectors. So that's what you're doing with symbols is if you're done messing with symbols, you drag it in and up here it says revert to objects. It just changes it right back. That goes the same thing for text. It goes for anything. You can make text and then hit revert objects and you're back to editing. You can change it to paragraphs, artistic text, make it, do whatever you want. So it's just super transportable little files. Like I said, they're assets, not necessarily symbols. They're just quick files. Okay, let me go ahead. Now you understand that. I think you understand. I'll be around for questions. This isn't the only time, but I think you understand. Hopefully now, a symbol lives on your screen, but you have to export it in a little box that you have to name, and then it either lives in this address on your C drive, which you're the only one that can mess with it, and it shows up here, or you share it if you're a nice person and you put it in the in-house or wherever we decide to put it, and then all those symbols and peoples will be there for everybody to use. Art, Lydia, Stephanie, all the homies, they can just drag and drop, and there they are. So I see that as already powerful enough. Now imagine this. In a galaxy far, far away. So I've already been messing around with some of this. For assets, as far as the marketing and stuff, imagine that you have logos everywhere. So I'm using a nondescript logo, but let's say, we got the casinos, we got all of the stuff, we got all the logos. Here's a logo. So I'm going to just create a permit drawing, or better yet, a sign program. Here's what I'm thinking is JR can relate with the gas station we did, where he had 20 pages of sign program where their logo is everywhere. And then halfway through the project, they said, oh, we sent you the wrong logo. And guess what? You have to go change all the logos. Well, let me show you what symbols, a.k.a. assets, are the best at. So we are going to create a little sign program real quick where I'm just going to use this logo that the company sent, and I'm going to create a monument sign on page 1, and then page 2 I'm copy pasting. We're going to make some blade signs. This is going to be hanging a little blade sign in front on this page, and then also there's some window vinyl that is going to have this logo really small, but it's going to be, put across the top in a cool stylized way like they do. And then, as you walk in, they also want, one big one on a vinyl graphic right on the front of the glass window, plus the top there. And then page 3, they have it out on the big freeway sign. And that will be, out here. And it's on a big pole sign or whatever. So this would be the sign program. And you're using, and we're going to save this as, Sign Pro 2. That's the sign program. Okay. So you've made this sign program. You got all your descriptions all here. You know how we do, blah, blah, blah. Well, hey, why don't we just do that? Why don't we just grab all the homies and we start, putting for scale, right? Put your people, why don't we just put my money where my mouth is, So you're using these different, you can just drag and drop like that. There's your sign permit. Look how fast. Boom. Okay. So here's all your different things. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. But now you're done. You're going on to another job. Fine. And it takes a little bit. And I've noticed that sometimes, so to our credit, working with symbols isn't simple. It's easy once you get used to it, but it's not simple. And yes, I've had even Corel sometimes chokes. So I know that they've done a lot of work to be able to have these things live outside Corel and then speak to Corel and come back and forth. So I have had issues, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Anyway, so here's my example. Now, you get the call that, hey, we just sent you a new logo and we've changed how our logo looks. So here's how you do this. This is the power of this. You go into Windows and you go to that folder where you have saved those. So I'm going to go to I'm going to the CSL. So I'm going into the Corel content where symbols are. Remember, these are the box of toys. So I'm going to open this box of toys from this side. I'm going to go over here, .csl. I'm going to click it. Corel's going to open it, and I'm not in a CDR. I'm in a CSL. And now the Docker is very important because it will allow you to, if you notice, it is unlocked. This is what this means. You are working with the OG version. They call this the source of truth. I laugh. I think it's like 3 adventurers have to go find the source of truth. But that is the term of art for this. The source of truth means that this is the OG version. So you were sent this, you locked it into a symbol and you put it in the library. Now a week later, they're like, oops, we changed it. So you go and you drag this in. And now, because this is the original, see it says edit master up here. All the other ones never let you edit. This means you're live. Now, when you hit edit master, it will snap it to the center. So, if you're too zoomed in and it disappears, that's what happens. So you hit edit master and it snaps it to the center. And now look, it's black. We are live. So you can get in there, you can edit it, you can do what's up. They sent you information that they wanted this to be magenta and they wanted this to be a light blue. And they said that should have been green. That's what it should have looked like. And they wanted text. This is what I'm saying is you can do whatever you want. While this is open, you can do whatever they want. And they wanted to add that, it's their name is Fred's and it's bold. They give you this stuff too, whatever. So, and it's bolded and it goes on top. Okay. This is their new logo and they forgot. And so now if this is the way you like it, you hit finish up here. It's not because you're from Finland. It means you're done. And now it's locked back in and you can see where it's updated here on the, on the Docker. You save it and you close it. And now everywhere in a document has been updated. It hasn't been changed, but the document knows that changes have been made. So now I'm going to go to that same sign program. And now here's the old logo, right? And here's the people, there's a symbol that, look right here, these are the symbols because we are, on the page right here, Sign Pro 2 up here. But if I highlight this one, see where it says update is grayed out and it says edit master. Well, you can't because this isn't the master and there's no update. Watch this. Update. Are you ready? The entire document. You hit this, boom. Now it's all the fresh stuff. Now you just go through. Everything has been changed. Everything you did to it stays scaled, everything. So even if you made a big giant version, this is what the new logo would look like. Now, you obviously need to deal with this because you're like, oh, great. Now it doesn't fit where I had it. But everywhere on that document and any other documents you've done, let's say you got production files ready. If you haven't sent them yet, you can then go to those documents and you have to hit update, but they are ready to update. Now you can choose not to, whatever. It doesn't do it automatically, but I'm thinking you can see the power in that possibly. I'm not saying we got to do it for everything, but if you understand how this works and the potential, then maybe you can see where, maybe I'll do that. One other thing that I thought would be possibly that could work would be, I'm going to set up a separate thing here. So what we do tenant name. Now, again, no big deal if it's just a one-off, we're just doing one little mall or something, no big deal. But if you're doing a sign program, let's say like we've done some sign programs that go on for months and you're waiting on, not only are you waiting on, the name of the tenant, but you might just be waiting on the blessed artwork. Let's say Chipotle is going in, but they still haven't sent you the updated JPEG or whatever that has, or whatever, the blessed thing. So you can do these as name holders. And it's important that you do, 3 different ones. And then you can create symbols of each of these and just go like T1 for tenant 1. And then now you got to export. So this is what we're doing. So I'm selecting all of them, but again, don't select them here. You have to select all 3 here. Let's say they send you the new logo. So now what you're going to do is go to Windows. Again, you're going to find this through Windows Explorer and you're going to open this box of toys, from the backside. And now you can see where these 3 tenants, the T1, T2, and T3 are unlocked. Now you're going to grab the one that they sent. So let's say it's basically T3 position is the one that, they sent. Now you're going to go here, drag it in and hit edit master. And now you're live. Now it's open heart surgery. Now you don't need to just update this name. Essentially, let's say they sent you the logo and, you know, it's a red circle with a, you know, with a F in it, and, you know, it's white and it's just going to go in the center there. Yeah, it's kind of cool off center like that. And then it's just, you know, whatever their logo is, and it's, you know, Fred's. But it's, they like Bondi for some reason. Who knows why they like Bondi, but it's what they do, you know. We're not here to judge. Well, this is the new logo. So you just get rid of Tenant because you're still in this. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're still technically open heart surgery on Tenant 3. Now you have this, you like it the way it is. It's full size. Make sure it's the, you know, the size it's supposed to be, because it will be scaled down. If you're using 1/2 inch equals a foot, don't worry about it. It will automatically bring it. So that way it's correct. So working with the symbol, make sure it's 1-to-1, but then when it goes into the drawing, it'll be fine. It'll figure it out. It's not like a big giant thing's going to drop in there and obliterate. So now we're done. Hit finish. And look at right there. T3 is now Fred's. And we're good. Save and close it out. And now we just need to go back to that sign program, open it up. And that was Pro 2, right? Yep. So now everything that has Tenant 3, if you click it, see it says update. The other ones don't say update. They didn't get updated. But Tenant 3, throughout the entire document now, you hit update. And just like that. So now it's Fred. And of course it does, you know, you might have to massage it because, you know, whatever. But, you know, Fred's 2 is now everywhere that Tenant 3 was. So I think on page 7, right? Yeah. Anyway, there's power there. Whether we use it, you know, just saying. So I think that's good. I think you guys understand. I know I was kind of all over the place, but it is complicated. Anyway. But again, if there's any questions or anything like that, hit me up.
Check the